Welcome to Get Your Coins Sis podcast, the audio show designed exclusively for you. I'm Nell Latrice, your host and fellow mom on a mission to empower, inspire, and guide you on the path to financial independence. Tune in for expert advice, real-life stories, and actionable tips to help you secure the bag and truly get your coins, sis. Because you deserve financial success and stability. Let's thrive together. Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Get Your Coins Sis podcast. This is your host, Nell Latrice, and today we have Michael. He is a realtor, and he is going to be telling us all about how to get into real estate, what he does, and all the tricks and tips that we need to know to either buy your first property or expand your portfolio. So, Michael, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Michael Swanson. I am located in the Bay Area, California. Been a realtor for about 3.5 years now. So, I've expanded my business. I've done pretty well my 3.5 years, and so just ready to get on here and talk about it, and hopefully some people can learn some tips and some good information from me.
Yes, of course. So, what do you love most about being a realtor?
Honestly, a couple things. I love the main thing for me is I would say the freedom. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's always been in my spirit. I just didn't know what lane I wanted to go down. And so being a realtor, being able to kind of make my own schedule, do my own thing, I'm running my own business. And so that's always been huge to me. But on the other side, helping people. Like, I love helping people. I love the excitement I see when I'm handing a new homeowner the keys to their new home. Buying a home is a tough process. And so when you help somebody navigate through that, and you get to see, the excitement at the end, that's really big to me. So I love helping people, and, love helping people make, which probably will be the biggest purchase of their life.
Yes, building that legacy, generational wealth. I think that's what people forget about the home buying process also, is that you're building something for yourself and future generations after you.
That's right.
So that is so good. So what are some misconceptions about people have about realtors in the home buying process?
Well, I'll tell you this, a misconception that people have about realtors is that we don't do much work.
Yeah.
Do that a lot. Oh, they just open doors and make a bunch of money. And it's really not that. Like, we work around the clock. I work a lot of times 7 days a week. I'm getting to the point where I need to kind of scale back and not work as much, but it's a lot of hard work. And I think people, think that we don't do much. We just push paper and show homes and that's it. But it's a lot of work to being a realtor.
Yeah. So what advice would you give someone that's looking for a realtor? Like, what kind of characteristics should someone be looking for when they're trying to find someone to help them find their dream home or starter home?
So I'll say this. I'll say the biggest thing for me is finding someone that you like, right?
Mhm.
And finding someone that matches, that does business the way you want to do business, right?
Yes.
So if you're a first time home buyer, you know nothing about the process, you're lost, then you need to find a realtor who is okay with keeping you in the loop, maybe talking
Yep.
to you 3 or 4 times a day, letting you know exactly what's going on every minute that is going on. If you're, let's say you're an investor or you're somebody who bought their third or fourth house, and you might not need to be handheld through the whole process, then you need to find someone that kind of matches that with you. So I think just finding someone that meshes with who you are as a person is really big. People do business with people that they like.
Yes.
So if our personalities match, if I do business the way that you like to do business, then I think we'll be a good fit for each other. Because a lot of realtors, there are a lot of bad realtors, but there are a lot of good realtors. So there's a whole bunch of realtors, just in my area who are great realtors. They know what they're doing, but their personality might not match a certain person's, and my personality might match better, or my personality might not match with someone theirs might. So I think just finding someone you like and finding someone who does business the way that you want to do business is important.
Yeah, that's so true because actually I was the opposite of what you just said. So when I bought my first place, I didn't have a realtor. I was just out willy-nilly doing me.
Right.
And
Right.
the people that was selling the property, they didn't have a realtor either. It was an older couple.
Okay.
They had did found a condo and it was like a flip for them. So they did it all. Their son helped them flip it or whatever. And I rode past. This is the only property that I had seen.
Okay.
when I was looking, because I really wasn't looking. I just rode past it. My mom was like, "We should go look at that one." So I did. I went in there. I liked it, the area. I was like, "Oh, this is a perfect opportunity for me to get started." So I ended up putting the $500 earnest money down. They was like, "Oh, if you want to get it, we could take that." I just went and got a check. I ain't had no realtor, no nothing. I just went out to the bank, got my little check, 500, and I gave them. They like, "We'll pay for a lawyer too if you want a lawyer to look over everything." I said, "Oh, okay, no, that's all right." So I kind of just navigated it myself, and the area actually ended up being a good buy for me because they said that a lot of investors wanted the place, but they wanted to sell to somebody who was going to actually live in it.
Right. Right.
So I ended up getting it, and they paid my closing costs to everything. I ended up doing a conventional 3% down first time home buyer loan.
Right.
And that's what I want people to understand too. I didn't know this when I bought the condo. FHA only does it in certain areas. So
Hmm.
that particular condo that I purchased, I could not get a
Oh,
FHA loan. Yes. So I had to go conventional, which was also fine because they do first time home buyer too.
right.
So that was my thing. It was kind of switched for me. And then the second time I did get a realtor. So those are
Now,
some really,
now
really
how
good
was that?
points.
Was that a better experience with the realtor?
No. I actually, so I actually feel like I navigated the process. No, I do not recommend this to anybody who's listening to go in it blind, like I did, and do it yourself. It just kind of fell in my lap that way, and I actually met good people who were selling the place. They didn't have
Okay.
any ill intentions, so it
Right.
worked out for me.
Right.
But I do not recommend that to anybody because you never know who's on the other side of that table, who's trying to sell you the property. But I do agree with vetting because I bought another house,
Okay.
a second one, and I turned the first one into an investment property. So I
Right.
rent it out now. And I went through three realtors before it was a no. The
Right.
third one, he got me together.
Right.
The first realtor, he was cool. Everybody recommended him. So I'm like, all right, great. Not a bad guy, but it was some things that we put in a bid for a house. And of course, this is when the market was crazy. This was winter of 2023, where it was few and
Okay.
far in between. It wasn't a whole lot of inventory.
Right.
So when I went to put in an offer, of course it got rejected, whatever the case may be. And he was like, well, I'll check and see what kind of offer they did accept. I said, okay, cool. Let me know what they say. I ain't never heard nothing else back from him.
See.
I was like, well, what happened? I'm in the middle. I had a pre-approved loan. Pre-approved. Even the lender, the first lender he gave me, she ghosted me. She ran my credit and everything, and that's what I want people to understand. Make sure you understand who you are working with,
Definitely.
because the lender even ran my credit, said I was approved for X amount of dollars. I sent her all of my personal information, my W-2, whatever you need to close on a loan, and I ain't hear nothing else back from her.
That is crazy. I mean,
Yes, that's crazy. So I ended up going through him, so I ended up putting it on pause. I found another realtor because I was using Rocket Mortgage, who I used the first time, and they sent me a realtor. He was cool, but I felt like he was too pushy. Like, I
mhm.
don't like to feel like somebody's pushing me into a decision. So it was when I went around to look at houses now, even though this is my second purchase, I still don't know what I'm doing. I still don't
Right.
know what I'm looking for. So we would go look at houses, and he wasn't showing me around. Like, he wasn't, I literally walked around myself. I don't know. Now I know where to look for how old a machine is, HVAC system. I know now,
Right.
but then I didn't know how to do those things, and it's just like I need a little bit of insight. This is what you're here for. Like, you're not here to just, first of all, I found the house myself. You didn't even send it to me. So then now we're here and you're still not doing nothing. So I
You
got
did.
rid of him.
You did half the job already. All you had to
I
do
did
was
half the job. I found my own place. I'm in there walking around looking at it myself.
right.
I need to know more. So when it was time to put the earnest money down, it was only like $200 or $300, but I just didn't feel good about it. You know, you just don't feel good
Right.
about something, and I want
Yep.
people to remember that too. When you don't feel good about something, rethink it, because I didn't. I backed out of it, and then my third realtor, he got me together. He
Good.
got me
Good.
together.
You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
He looked at all my machines, the way it worked. He made sure to tell me the years. He was the bomb.
Okay.
So
Good.
yes, I know that
Good.
was a little long-winded, y'all, but
That's
I
all right.
wanted y'all to understand how Michael's jobs work from the buyer's end
Mhm.
of the spectrum. So now that we talked about that, What should someone consider before deciding to buy a home? So I went through all my whole story. What do you think someone should consider?
Um, so one, if you're truly ready, for
Yeah.
one, because people, it's such people are so enamored by the idea of being homeowners. I mean, everyone should. I believe everyone, should own some property at some point in their life, and like you said, generational wealth. But make sure you're ready. So this is, financials. You got to make sure your money is correct. You got to
Hmm.
make sure your credit is correct. You got to make sure you're in a stable. You have a stable job because
Yep.
once you buy this house, once you get into this house and you buy this house, that's on you. There's no more landlord to come help you fix nothing.
Yes.
So I think financially, you have to be set. Everyone's finances are different, but if you feel like when you're ready, I feel like
Yep.
when you're ready. It's different from everybody. I never one thing you just said was the first person or the second realtor you um, worked with was very pushy,
Hmm.
right? And I always tell people, I don't want you to buy a house. Like I'm not here to try to force you or try to push you into buy a house. I'm here to navigate the process with you when you are ready.
Yes.
And that means, like I said, finances, you're in the right spot mentally because it's the big purchase. It's like I said, it's the biggest purchase most people are going to make in
Yes.
their lifetime. So you got to make sure you're ready and it's the right move.
Yes, yes. So what do you see, what do they usually make as the first mistakes, like first time home buyers? What mistakes do you see?
Um, Not saving enough money, listening to outside sources like
Yes.
their brothers or sisters, their dads. It's like, I've dealt with a lot of clients where it's like I'll tell them something and then they'll come back and tell me something that their daughter said or their father said. And it's like, dude, your dad ain't bought a house since 98. The market has since then, so I think that's the biggest thing is listening to outside sources, and just trying to rush the process. You can't rush this process.
No, no, you don't. Yes, you have to be sure because I
Yep.
see a lot of people have buyer's remorse, and
Yep.
once you locked into that house, it's over. Like,
I
I
had a
mean, you,
buyer. I had a
yeah.
buyer who I just closed with about 3 weeks ago,
Hmm.
and we went through two. Well, we put an offer in on a house, and then that offer got outbid, so we lost that house. And then we put an offer on two more houses, and one offer she reneged on before it got accepted, and another offer we got into contract, and she just figured out, hey, I don't want this no more. And for her, she thought she was, giving me a hard time. And I'm like, look, no, I'm glad you're doing this. This is your home. This is your house. I want you to make sure that you want this house, that you're going to love this house. Don't just rush into this process and buy a house because it's on the market and you're like, I got to buy something. No, take your time. We'll find the house that you want. And so, like you said, that's the big thing. It's not rushing the process, not moving into a house that you're going to later regret buying and moving into. Make sure this is the one. Make sure this is where you want to be, especially if you plan on being in this house for 10, 20, 30 years.
Exactly, exactly, because you want to love it. And yeah, you can change things aesthetically, but you can't change the location.
Right.
You cannot, there's certain things you just cannot change. So you have to make sure you like the area you're staying in, the school, if you have kids, the school district, how far it is from work. All of those things have to be considered when you purchase a home because it's not like renting. It's not a year lease and then you're done.
Right.
You have to figure
You
out
here.
what you're going to do with it. Yes, you are here until you figure out what you're doing with this property.
Right.
So could you take us through the steps of uh the basic steps of buying a home from search to close? So what does that look like when you first wanted like, hey, I have the idea, now I
Right.
want to execute on it.
So I think the first thing you should do is have a buyer's consultation. I don't know if all realtors do it. I was always taught to do a buyer's consultation, and I love doing them. I do them either on. I've been doing them on Zoom pretty much since the pandemic. But I also do them in person. It just kind of depends on the client. But the buyer's consultation should tell you steps one, two, three, four, five, all the way through. I like coming in and letting you know before we even get started what to expect during this transaction. So there's no surprises, right? Now, of course, I'll be here to answer any questions. I'll be here to walk you throughout the whole process. But to start, I want you to know, okay, oh, this is Mike was talking about. Okay, now this is the step. Now this is the step. We already went through that, right? So that's the first step is a buyer's consultation. Finding out everything you need to know about the home buying process beforehand. Your second step is, of course, hooking up with a lender, right? Because you got to get pre-approved. You can't go out there searching for a house not knowing what a bank is willing to
Give you
give you,
with no
right?
money, basically.
Right, right. So you get pre-approved, you go through that process. Once you have that pre-approval, then you start searching for home. Okay. Once you start searching for the homes, you find the home that you want, you love it, ready to pop bottles and all of that. Then we go down into, okay, what are we going to offer? Right?
Mm.
What are you comfortable offering? So I always go into it and tell my clients, okay, I want to offer highest and best,
Mhm.
especially depending on the market. I don't want to play. If you really love this house, let's not play with these people, right? And so there's different factors that come into that. There's how long has the home been on the market? What condition is the home in? You know, how motivated are the sellers to sell and get out of there? Some people are like, hey, I got a new job. I need to get out of here in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm willing to take a little bit less to make sure that this transaction gets done.
Mhm.
So you want to gauge all of that information. So once we get to that point and we submit an offer, we get that offer accepted. Well, before we get to that point, there's three things that can happen with an offer. You can either get it rejected, accepted, or you can get a counter. A lot of times you'll get a counter. That can be that doesn't necessarily mean the price. They can counter the price. They can also counter the terms. You know, the close of escrow, the property that's left. You might have asked for a washer and dryer. They might not want to give you their washer and dryer. You know,
Mhm.
so all of that comes back. So that goes into negotiations. Then once we get on the same page, we have an accepted offer. Right off the bat, we're getting into inspections. All
Yep.
right. So usually once I get accepted offer, if it's early in the day, then that same day I'm calling around my inspectors to see when we can book, you know, a time to come and get an inspection. If it's not, then I'll do it, you know, first thing the next morning. But we want to get those inspections in and get those reports back fairly quickly so we can know what we're working with. Okay. I
Mhm.
always tell people now it's different. I would say, you know, it's different state to state, of course. I'm in California. In California, I always tell people to keep $1,500 on hand for inspections. Now, typically you won't spend that much. Typically you might spend about half of that,
Right.
right? But you want to keep that extra on hand just in case you need to get some other inspections done that you didn't know that need to be done. I had a client who, you know, we did the pest inspection, we did the general home inspection, and then the general home inspector said, "Hey, I think you need to get a foundation inspection done."
Mhm.
So that was some more money that needed to be spent. So I always tell people keep 1,500 on hand. Hopefully, we won't have to spend that much. You might only have to spend about 600 or 700, but just in case, keep that on hand. Okay.
Yep.
Um, Also, within 3 days of that accepted offer, we have to deposit what you were saying earlier, that earnest money deposit. Okay. A lot of times out here, that earnest money deposit is like 2 to 3%
Mhm.
of the purchase price. Okay. This is showing the seller that you're serious.
Yes, I was going to say, can you explain for people who don't know what earnest money is and what it's used for, if you can explain that a little bit?
Yeah, no problem. So your earnest money is pretty much what I like to call like your skin in the game. It's your it's your it's your first impression, right? I like to call it your first impression. So if I go on a date, you go on a date with somebody and your date shows up, you know, not looking right, dirty, don't smell good, you're not gonna want to date this person no more, right? And so the same thing, if I come in with a low earnest money deposit, the seller might say, "Hey, this person's not serious." You know, so this pretty much is your skin in the game. This keeps your spot in this house, right? And it also goes towards your down payment. So it's not separate from your down payment. Whatever you put down for the earnest money, that's deducted from the down payment that you'll end up paying at the end of the
Yes.
transaction. So if you put down if your down payment, you know, is 10,000, 15,000, let's say $15,000, and you put down, you know, a $3,000 earnest money deposit, now you owe $12,000 at the end of the transaction.
Yes, and that's what my realtor, I wanted to make a point too on that. My realtor told me don't put more on the earnest money than you're willing to lose, because sometimes if you put that earnest money down if for some reason that you want to back out of the contract, that's what they get to keep sometimes is your earnest money, because they've held out on that property thinking that you were going to buy it. So I
Right.
want people to remember that too, that it's not always refundable, that earnest money.
But so you're right, it's not always refundable, but what we put contingencies in place
Yes.
to protect that money. So the three main contingencies. are your your loan contingency, making sure
Hmm.
that you're able to qualify for this loan,
Yes.
your inspection contingency, and your appraisal contingency. So your inspection contingency is once we get those, it's called inspection or investigation contingency. Let me say that.
Yes.
So those are the same thing. Just in case you see somebody you're buying a house and you see investigation and inspection contingency is the same thing. But what that is once you get those inspections done, and let's say there's something wrong. Let's say there's an issue with the home that you're not comfortable with. You go to that seller and say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, look, I love the house, but this needs to be fixed." You know,
Hmm.
and so it's on the seller to either get that fixed or give you the credit to get that fixed once you close escrow, which is giving you some money back at the close of escrow to get this issue fixed. Okay, so if you have that contingency in place and they're not willing to either give you that credit or get that issue fixed, then you can back out and get your money back. Now, once you get to a point where you remove that contingency, now they're no longer obligated to give you that money back. So you want to make sure, I always tell my clients, make sure that you're okay with this property and you're okay
Yes.
with what it says in this inspection report before we remove this contingency. Because once we remove this contingency,
It's
they're not
done.
obligated to give you your money back.
Nope.
And so it's the same thing with the loan. If you always tell people, don't go out and get no new credit cards. Don't go
Yep.
co-sign on nobody's car. Don't go buy no go buy any furniture on
Yeah.
credit once you're in escrow, because all of this can affect your pre-approval and can affect your loan.
Yes. And you get all the way to that clear to close, well, supposedly, and then here you go, some
Right,
stuff coming up.
right,
They like, what's going on? You don't want to open you a new credit card thinking you're doing something. So
right.
yes, make purchases after, but we are going to get in a little bit into that once you're done on the financial process.
And then the last one is, like I said, the last one is the appraisal. When you're getting a loan, the lender is going to send out an appraiser, a third party who has isn't partial to either side, and this person is going to come out and just make sure that the property is worth what you're under contract for. Okay, so if you're under contract for 400,000, they come back and say, "Hey, this house is worth 400,000." You're good. If they say this house is worth more than 400,000, you're great because now you're stepping into a house with instant equity,
Oh,
right? And then the only issue is if they say this house comes in under. So if it's worth 400,000, you're under contract for 400,000. They say, "Hey, we appraise this property at 390," right? Now, the lender is only going to give you $390,000 to make this
yep.
purchase. You're on the hook for that extra 10,000. Okay, and so this is where it also comes back into negotiations. You can go to the seller and say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I need you guys to come down 10,000 on the property on the purchase price, so that we can get this done and it can match the appraisal amount. Or you can have the extra 10,000 on hand yourself. If neither one of those is feasible, then you use your appraisal contingency to back out.
To make
Uh,
out, yes.
so these are all are your money's not gone once you give the EMD. Your money's not gone until you sign off on those contingencies and say everything is cool.
Yes, those are all really, really good tips because I didn't know what none of that stuff was until the second time I bought a house because I didn't do that the first time. And I'm like,
Right,
what is all of this stuff? So I was calling him over and over, like, I just need to make something clear. He was like, oh,
right,
it's fine.
right.
Like, before I give my money, I need to make sure I'm able to get my money back. And like you said, all of those contingencies is what helped me do that. And I will also say with the inspection thing with mine, make sure that the property is clear of where your inspector needs to inspect
Yes.
because they cannot legally move anything. And I learned my lesson even with this place, I didn't know that. So she had a bunch of stuff in the garage, but it was lined against the wall, so he couldn't move it around.
Mm-hmm.
So once he was done, I done closed. I come back, it's rain in the garage.
Oh, yes, they did. They probably did that on purpose.
She did it on purpose. She had some stuff hid on there. She did that on purpose. So that was another learning lesson for me. Now, luckily, it cost me like $800 to fix it, so it wasn't too bad. I had got some crazy quotes, 3 and
Right.
4,000, but I found somebody who sealed it for 800, and it hasn't, it's worked. So that's what I want people to understand. Make sure when they're inspecting, move around go with your inspector while they're inspecting. Make sure you're there. And if you're there, I will be moving around the stuff for them. Whatever
Right,
you need to see, I'm moving it, or I'm not buying this house.
right.
Because I didn't know that until the second time. The first time when I got an inspection done, it was empty, so that was never a thing. The
Gotcha.
second time, it was stuff all in here. So please, please, please go with your inspector and your realtor
Hmm.
and make sure that nothing is blocking a problem before you purchase the home.
That's a good tip.
Yes. So, what is the financial process looks like for buying a home? So, what do you think the ideal profile should look like in preparation and buying one?
I mean, the higher the credit score, the better, right? A lot of people say, different lenders and different programs have different minimums. I always tell my
Yeah.
clients you want to be at least around a 620,
Okay.
640 credit score, at minimum. You might be able to get some with 580, but your interest rates might be crazy.
Yeah.
You- so I like to tell people to be around 620 to 640. As far as like savings, it's different nationwide because like I said, I'm in California where I'm sure home prices are ridiculous, right? So
Crazy. You said the Bay Area. I know the Bay
oh yeah,
prices because them
oh, yeah,
prices
it's
crazy out
crazy out
there.
here. So just on a case by case basis, you wanna have, I would say 10%,
Okay.
7 to 10% of the purchase price of the home saved, or whatever your pre-approval amount is, because that's going to go into if you're a first time home buyer, there's a good chance you can get to that 3.5, 3%
Hmm.
um, down payment, but you still got to take into account, the closing costs.
Yep.
You still have to take into account inspections and anything else that might
Mhm.
go wrong. So I like to tell people, you want to at least have 7 to 10% of the house on hand. So if it's a $300,000 house, have you $30,000 to the side. If it's a
Mhm.
$500,000 house, have you $50,000 to the side. Or at least somewhere around that range, so you won't be scrambling, wondering how
Yes.
you're gonna pay for what.
Yeah. Plus the moving costs.
Right.
Whatever extra cost, like when I first got in here, I paid, of course, moving, and I got some trees trimmed. That was extra 1,200. Then the garage was an extra 800. I paid
Right.
1,500 to move. So you're talking about another $4,000 to $5,000. And I'm not saying that's gonna always be those expenses, but you still want to have a cushion, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, to make sure you have a little extra in there. So are there any specific loans or programs you recommend for first-time home buyers?
Um, I mean, I love Fannie Mae. I love FHA. They're a little more, you gotta kind of they're a little more strict than a conventional. But if you're a first time home buyer, you don't want to put 20% down. Um, Definitely check with your lender. Programs vary throughout the nation. So every like state by state, like California has a whole bunch of first time homebuyer programs, whole bunch of down payment assistance programs that you can get into, and your lender should be able to tell you about all this. So if you're in wherever state you're in, make sure you contact your lender if you're a first time homebuyer, or maybe your money's a little funny but you want to get into a home. Say, hey, I need a down payment assistance program. I need this. Um, my mom was actually my second client, right?
Oh, yeah.
And when she came in, like um, I think her condo that she bought was in the mid fives. I think it was like 550 or something like that. And she came in and she only had to she only ended up spending $11,000 out of pocket
Yes.
because she had the down payment assistance program. She had the first time home buyer program, and the lender was really good with putting her and getting her in all these programs. So make sure you ask your lender, hey, what down payment assistance programs do you have? What first time home buyer programs do you have? And make sure another thing on that hand, make sure that you talk to multiple lenders,
Yes.
because what people the misconception that people have is, oh, I don't want my credit ran a whole bunch of times. Well,
Mm.
if you're getting your credit ran 3 or 4 times by mortgage lenders, then that all goes as one hard pool. These aren't all separate pools, so it won't
Yeah.
affect your credit as bad as you think it will. Shop your lenders like you shop your realtors. Make sure that this
Mhm.
person is working the way you want them to work. Make sure they do have access to these programs, because even though most lenders do, some lenders don't do a good job and they don't know
Yeah.
which programs. They really don't. So make sure you're shopping lenders, make sure you're working with different lenders, and make sure you find the one that says, okay, I got this program for you, and they might be able to save you a bunch of money, $20,000, $30,000 just off these programs.
Yes, and make sure, and that's what that those are really good points. And I also want people to remember to make sure if there's any income restrictions on your down payment assistance, because that's what happened to me. I was going to use one, and they was like, "Nah, so you make too much."
Make too much.
I'm like, well, never mind then. So make sure you're
Yeah.
asking before you get into the whole shebang of the down assistance program. I will be asking one, is there an income restriction? And two, how long do I have to stay in this home because I received this down payment assistance?
Right.
Because sometimes you have to stay in that home a certain number of years if you want them to pay for
Yep.
your down payment. So,
Yep.
yes, those are all really, really good points. So, are there any hidden costs that people should think about? So, anything that, might be sprung on you at the last minute that you can think of?
So no cost should be hidden if your realtor is doing his job and
Good
telling you
one.
what to expect. You know, like I said before, I don't want any surprises. When
Yes.
it comes to my clients, so I tell people off the top what to expect. So there shouldn't be anything hidden. Like I said, the biggest things are your down payment. Um, your as far as the transaction itself is your down payment, your earnest money deposit, which goes towards the down payment, and your inspections and your
Okay.
inspections. Those are and of course the closing costs at the end. And that's kind of like with the closing costs, it's kind of like on you or your realtor to kind of gauge what that may be because you really don't get the for sure number until you're
Nope.
getting ready to close.
Yep. That's when everything wrap up. Luckily,
Right.
mine at the end, both of mine ended up being significantly less than what I thought. So like the first property, I only put $5,000 down total. That was for everything.
Okay.
Because they ended up paying 3,000, the people who were selling it. And then
Yep.
this time I only paid I think $8,000 altogether with everything. So it was relatively low for
And
me.
that's another thing. Don't be scared to ask for credits,
Yep.
closing
I was
costs,
pushing it too.
all
They
that.
like, nah, sis. I asked anyway. So I was like, well, let me get that washer and dryer. She was like, nah. I'm like, all right, whatever. But I was wanted to ask anyway, just in case she wanted to give it away.
I'll tell you a story. So we
Yeah.
one of my clients just closed on a house, and the house was listed at 720,000, and she wanted the house really bad, and so she wanted to offer more. So we ended up offering 730, and it got accepted, and we got to a point where I'm not sure if it's going on in other states, but in home insurance and auto insurance right now is really expensive in California,
That
right?
was high. Mine high too. Mine has doubled for no reason, and I don't have anything on my license. They just said inflation.
Right. And so homeowners insurance out here is crazy, especially if you're in what we call a fire zone. So I'm in an area where wildfires happen. They haven't happened in a few years, but insurance companies are skeptical of that stuff. So um, it came back and her insurance quotes were really crazy, like crazy high.
Mm.
And it made her really discouraged. She was saying, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pay this. This mortgage is high with this insurance. And she was ready to back out of the contract. And so I ended up getting with the listing agent, and at the end of the day, we ended up getting her $10,000 credits towards her insurance, and her
Mhm.
insurance was maybe I think like 2,500 a year. So
Oh,
essentially, the sellers paid for her home insurance for like 4 years
yes.
at the end of the transaction. So she put she paid 30,000 over. I mean, sorry, she paid 10,000 over asking, but she ended up getting that 10,000 back in cash and closing costs. So there's a whole bunch of ways you can work it, and if you're working with a good realtor who knows how to negotiate and knows how to work the process, they should be able to get you some money back, especially in the market we're in now, where it's kind of in the middle. It's not really a seller's market. It's not really a buyer's market.
Yeah.
It kind of goes case by case. But I'm seeing a lot of people get a lot of credits back at the end.
Yeah, I was asking anyways. The market was crazy. I'm like, nah, I still ask them, are they trying to get she gave me $1,000. This is when it was hot. This was last summer. This was everything was like flying off the market. And I
Right.
was like, nah, still ask her. And at first I think I asked her for 2,000. And then her realtor, well, she came back. She didn't want to give anything, but then her realtor was like, nah, unless you want to lose the sale,
Right.
over a thousand or $2, she like just give her, let's meet in the middle. So I was like,
Right.
okay, then that's cool, but you have to be willing to give and take on both ends
Right.
of that. So I learned that too. So what should people look for in the neighborhood when they're house hunting? So like I mentioned earlier, you have to look at your lifestyle.
Facts. And so I try to. So there's certain things that I can't say as a realtor, right? Like I won't ever say that's a bad neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Anything right like that, right? For one, people's what how much crime and activity and all of that in a neighborhood and how much people can handle is on a case by case basis. I might look at a neighborhood and say, hey, that neighborhood's not that bad to me, and somebody else might say, hey, this is a horrible neighborhood. I would never live there, right? So I always tell people to go use these websites. The what's the website where like, neighborly
Oh
there's
yeah,
there's
yes. It is
there's
like neighborly. Yes, I
yeah
use that.
there's
Next
a
door is like one like on next
door.
next door. Yep.
Right. There's a few um, websites where you can go and you can see what these neighbors are saying about the neighborhood, right? And what's going on in the neighborhood. Also, drive by the home. Drive by the home in the daytime. Drive by the home in the nighttime. Drive by the home on the weekends, and just see what's going on. See if this is a neighborhood that you would want to live in, what the activity is, what's going on. Like you said, if you have kids, look into the school system. See where the schools are graded. If you big, so you want to buy a home, like you said, that kind of matches your lifestyle. If you're big on, shopping and eating out, you don't want to buy a house out on the boonies where you
Yes.
20 minutes to get to all the nearest shopping centers.
Yep.
You might want to buy a house that's around the corner from, the Walmarts or the Targets or, big shopping centers like that. So I always tell people just gauge what you can tolerate based on your lifestyle. I grew up in Oakland, and so some people might be scared to buy a house in Oakland, you know, and
Yep.
other people are like, I love Oakland. I would love to buy a house out here, So it just kind of depends on what you can take, what you can tolerate, and what you want for your family.
Yep. And I always say, look at the people on the street around you too.
Mhm.
You want to make sure they will bring your house value down. If
Facts.
they
Oh, man.
if they got stuff sitting outside, I'm glad now I got lucky. But now, even my second time, I was still learning stuff that I feel like I should have learned. Well, I'm not gonna say I should have learned the first time because it went smooth for me the first time,
Right.
even not having a realtor. But I would say look at the people next door, make sure they don't if you know you don't like people who put a lot of stuff outside their house, or people like to live different kind of ways.
Facts.
And I do not like to pull up to my house, even though I know it's their house. I don't want to pull up and see all that stuff outside.
Oh, man. Take care of
That,
yourself.
yes. So I want people to be mindful that you need to look at your neighbors too, and not just your house that you're going to be living in,
Yeah.
because you have people that's too loud. I need to know people going to work because I work from home.
Right.
So I need to know, are you going to work during the day? Because I don't want to hear all this noise all day.
Like parking, like a big thing for one of my clients was
Yes,
parking.
parking.
Like
Yep.
they drove past the house at nighttime and there was no street parking. And he was like, I can't do this. I got 3 cars. Where I'm gonna park my other cars at. I got
Yep.
two in the driveway and I'm got other cars and we're gonna have family and friends come over. They're gonna be able to park somewhere. So that was a big thing. So, you gotta
That's a good
gauge
one.
you got to gauge what you want in your neighborhood and what you desire. Because, like you said, if you buying this house as your forever home or as a house you're gonna raise your kids in, then you gotta, like you said, you gotta like the neighbors or at least be able to, tolerate them. You gotta like the neighborhood, what's all around you.
Yes, that's good. So what are your thoughts on a fixer upper versus a move-in ready home?
That's a good question. I think me personally, I wouldn't suggest a fixer upper, but like there's even a FHA loan right now, the 203K FHA loan where you can buy where they will loan you the price of the home, the money for the home, and the money to do a small
Oh yeah.
fixer upper job,
Oh,
and
that's
so
like what is it, like the FHA 203 KB loan,
203K.
something like that. Yeah, I knew it was some. I couldn't remember what it was called, but yes, is that what you're
Yeah.
referring to? Okay.
Yeah. And so if that's what you if that's what you want, I would say go for it. Like some people don't want to just some people want, I've seen people get houses built from the ground up, or some people might come in here and say, I love the layout of this house. I love everything about it,
Mhm.
but I don't like, how it's, structured. So I'm coming here, I'm gonna change the kitchen, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And so it's a longer process, of course. So if
Yep.
you're trying to get in there and just, close and go in your house the next day, you're gonna have to wait because now you got to get the contractors out there, you got to get everybody out there to do the work. So if you're willing to be patient and wait for the home to get to where you want it to be, then it's a great idea to get a
Yeah,
fixer.
yeah. And I want people to remember too, all handyman or construction people or contractors are not created equal.
Ooh, say
And
that.
it is few and far in between where you find when you find the good ones, you gotta hold on to them.
You
And
got to hold on to
typically,
them.
when you ask people for recommendations, they don't be trying to give up their good people because they don't want them more busy, for their own
Yep.
project. So I
Right.
want people to remember that too. You need to have reliable people who can fix stuff for you.
Yep.
So yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I was like, I use my uncle, so I know I can trust him. So any of
Yes.
my clients that need something, I got my uncle's general contractor. He got people that do everything. I
Yeah.
trust his work, so it's easy. It's an easy pick for me.
Yeah, see, I didn't have that. So I'm scrambling, looking around. I finally I actually found a guy. I called some number that wasn't the right number, but he ended up being a handyman, so it worked out and he was good. And then I used Thumbtack and I found a really good guy. So I don't even use Thumbtack anymore. He gave me his direct number. So now I'm able to
Okay.
just call him when I need stuff. And then so they recommend their good people. So that's how I met good contractors, but you have to search for them. So I want people to remember that too. When you want to fix up a place, you need to have a good contractor.
Definitely.
So is buying a home a good investment in your opinion? And if so, what are the benefits?
It's a great investment in my opinion. I'm big on real estate and the stock market. So those are those are two investments I love. I think real estate is a great investment because for one, if you plan on if you're an investor and you're looking at buying property from that aspect, then it's a little different, right? If
Mhm.
you're just looking as a retail buyer and you're looking for your home, it's a great investment at any time. A lot of people want to wait off, oh, I heard it's going to be a crash, or I want to wait until the interest rates
Yep.
drop. I think a lot of time that hurts you more than it helps you. If you don't plan on moving out of your house, if you plan on staying in your house for 7, 8, 9, 10 years at least, then don't worry about a crash. Even if you buy your house and a crash does happen, who cares? The market's going to rise back up eventually. Studies show that if you look at the market, if you look at your home prices every 10 years, so every 10 years you've been in your home, if you buy a house today, 10 years from now your house is going to be worth more than what it is today, no doubt about it, right? No doubt about it. So even if the crash happened, it's not going to last forever. When that crash happened in 2007, and all the 2007, 2008, and all the houses were all were losing value, and everybody was buying houses for cheap. Everybody that bought those houses by 2016, 2017, their houses, they had crazy equity in their
Double,
home.
triple in value.
Right. And so I say, don't, it's always, for me, it's always a good time to buy if you're ready. That,
Yep.
and that's just my motto. It's always a good time to buy if you're ready, even with interest rates. Yeah, interest rates have been higher recently. I want people to stop. Another thing, if anybody that's listening, I want people to stop waiting and thinking you're gonna get those COVID rates again. Okay,
It's not
because they might
happening.
not ever come back.
No, as
You
you
know,
see, it still ain't been happening. People been
right?
saying that it's going in 2025, and those rates still ain't back
They're
around.
not, they're
So,
not coming back. So that's how
yep.
you got to think. That ain't coming back. So you got to say, okay, rates are at 6% right now. Okay, let's say that. And people want to say, okay, let's wait till rates get to 5%. Well, here's the downside to that. When you wait, there's two things that can happen. For one, you're losing any equity that you could have made in that time, right? You're still paying your landlord, you're still renting for somebody, and you're missing out on
Mhm.
any possible equity that you could have by buying this house. Also, if you buy a house now and rates go down next year, then what can you do? You can just refinance, right? And you can get that better rate, and you can still have that equity. You can still be in your home. So I always tell people, I know I kind of went off left field, but
Oh no, you okay?
okay, I always tell people, don't wait. If you're ready, if your finances is right, if your credit is right, if you feel like it's that time, don't wait. Don't wait for a crash. Don't wait for the interest rates to drop. All that's correctable. All that in the long run, you're going to be fine.
Yep. Yep, I agree with that too. And even for the people, when you're thinking about an investment or a primary residence or whatever the case may be, I didn't have money to do an investment at first, an investment property. So my game plan was to buy it, stay in it for a little bit, and then rent it out and let those people pay for my investment. And then
Exactly.
now I'm able to take out a second mortgage or a HELOC or get a
Mhm.
DSCR loan. So you have to think about it that way too. If I want people to remember, if you don't have the money to invest, make it your primary home.
Right.
Stay in it. I stayed in my first place. I was there for about 4 years.
Okay.
I built
Yeah.
a ton of equity and I got out and now the rent is 2000 plus a month. So not only is it covering my interest rate, because my interest rate was low because of COVID,
Mhm.
and I got only a 15-year loan, so I think I owe like 9 or 10 years now. But now I have someone in there paying the rest of that down for me.
Yep.
So it's like I want people to think. So now a place that I owe, I think like 85,000, 86,000 on is worth over 200,000.
See,
So yeah, and just those, just from coming up on 5 years. So, and I was able to pay extra. So I want people to remember, if you don't have money for an investment, you can make your primary residence into an investment. And
yeah,
also, I didn't go into buying it saying this was my dream home. I think
right.
people get caught up in that whole, I want my dream home. I'm buying my first home. I need it to be my dream home.
Yep. You're right. You're
And you're missing out on the opportunity, like you said. This goes back to what you said on the equity piece, which
mm,
then turns into money in your pocket. And even if you don't want to keep the house forever, when you sell it, you're making money off of it.
yep.
So those are
Yep.
really, really good points. I like those. So, what is one thing you wish all home buyers knew?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, just that this is a process, you
Yeah.
know. As far as the intricacies and as far as everything, your realtor's going to go over that with you. But just know, take it easy on your realtor.
Hmm.
Give them some grace. This is a process. That of course, if somebody's working their butt off for you, right? Or if somebody's playing around and not. It's like you knew with your first couple of realtors. You
Yeah.
know when it'll be right, right?
Hmm.
And so I just say, give your realtors grace. Let your realtors do their job, because they are here to advocate for you. We're here to advocate for you. We signed a contract with you that's saying, hey, my fiduciary duty is to work in your best interest, right?
Yes.
And so just allow us to do that. And of course, I work for you, and so I'm going to do. At the end of the day, I'm going to do what you want me to do, but I'm also going to give you the best advice that I can in the process. And at the end of the day, whether you want to take it or not, then we're going to go forward. But I think the big thing is just trust your realtor. I wish that
Mhm.
I want to trust their realtor, and I want them to trust the process and to know that this is a process. And at the end of the day, you're gonna come out a lot happier than you are in the middle of the process.
Yes, yes, you do. After you buy in and you see that stuff building up, it does make you feel good, that you made that first step.
Right.
So the last question I would like to know, if
Mhm.
someone is on the fence about buying a home, what would you say to them? What's your last word you want to leave out to someone who's on the fence?
I would say just do it. Like if it's really your goal and your dream to be a homeowner, then just do it. Don't overthink it. I went to a real estate conference yesterday and hosted by Tom Ferry, who's the number one real estate coach in the nation. And his one thing I walked away from that is be decisive, right?
Mhm.
Like just be decisive. Go for it. Call a realtor, call a lender, see what you need to do, and just go for it if that's your goal. You might not be, you might be scared of the process. You might be, worried about what's going to go on, but what's going to go on. But at the end of the day, call the experts, reach out to a realtor. Everybody follows a realtor somewhere on Instagram. Everybody knows one or two realtors,
Yep.
reach out to those people and just and ask them the question that you need to ask. And if you're on the fence and it's really something you want to do, then just go for it. It might not work out this time. Maybe I have clients who really want to buy a house, and I've had to send them to my lender and get them on credit repair programs and get that stuff going. So look at your finances, look at your credit, talk to a realtor and a lender and ask them, what do I need to do to get into a house? And then once they give you those steps, then just do it. Just do it. It might take a year, it might take two, but if you're working towards it, then it's going to happen in the end.
Ooh, amen. That's a good point to leave off with. So if everybody's listening, just do it. Just do it. So, thank you so much, Michael, for coming
Thank
on the
you.
show today. It was a pleasure having you. You are a wealth of knowledge. We appreciate all your tips. And thank you to our listeners for listening to another episode of Get Your Coins Sis podcast. Have a good day. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Get Your Coins Sis podcast. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and empowering. Remember, every step you take towards personal growth and financial literacy brings you closer to your goals. Stay connected with us on social media and share your thoughts and stories. Until next time, keep striving, keep believing, and keep trusting in God's plan for your life. Stay blessed and see you in the next episode.